today, after looking at the Horde neighborhood, the Razorwind Shores, and looking at the top most wanted, wish listed, and sought after plots in the Horde neighborhood, now we are checking out the Founders Point and the neighborhoods of the Alliance. We mentioned yesterday the Alliance as a choice for players was about 60 to 70% more popular than the Horde neighborhood. So again, we have looked at the wants, the wish lists of players. We have gotten over 60,000 entries on what players have favored in terms of plots they might be going for with housing, and now we have drawn the list of the most sought after of the housing plots in the Alliance neighborhood and the least sought after. Now, if you have checked the Horde video already, you already noticed some of the trends of the players. Players want to be alone. Even if this is supposed to be a neighborhood and you're supposed to be living happily next to each other, players still gun, in the Horde version, gunned for many of the isolated plots in the Horde version. So if you are to look at this using the same Horde logic, right, you're expecting plots like these, right, plots like these to be quite popular, and then the crowded ones to be sort of ignored. Now, in the Alliance version it gets a bit better, because there you go. These are all houses, these are all plots. So using the same logic of what happened with the Horde neighborhoods, this should be all amongst the worst ones, right? Who wants to live so close, who wants to have houses so close next to each other, right? Even houses like these, right? Or houses like these. Well, turns out there's only one of these that is in our top 7 of least wanted plots in the Alliance, which is this one. Plot number 9. The reason why possibly this plot number 9, is the least wanted is because of visibility. Once you're in here, you see all of the other houses, right? 1, 2, 3 in this cul-de-sac neighborhood kind of platform, and it is next to the main road. Even in a virtual world where this should technically be harmless, it's still not liked. Your property value will go down, you'll be next to a whole bunch of traffic, it's noisy, it's not good, and players don't like it. These houses are actually not in the least wanted, because perhaps even if they seem close, you know, they are sort of hidden well enough by the vegetation Blizzard put in between these houses, right? They sort of split them nicely enough with trees to make them seem at the very least more isolated, right? So these are not in the worst selected of the plots, but this one, the more open one, is. Now, we don't have to move too far away to go down to number 6 and number 5 of our least wanted, because plot 45 and plot 34 are right here. So this is another classic example of no, this is too close. This is too close. I don't want to be here, come out in the morning, ready to go to raid, and then see some other dude here. Right? It's too close. It's too close. I don't like it. That's why these two plots are next to each other. On top of this, as mentioned, this is even next to the main road. It's even close to some of the RP elements that will happen in here, with the flight path also being far too close to the house. So it's too close to common NPCs passing around, as well as too close to another plot who is in more of the same situation. This one perhaps is slightly better because it's a bit elevated from the main road, so you don't really see it, but I mean, look at this. I've got farmers in front of me. Really? Really? Farmers? I got a cow in front of me. That's not cool. So it has made it in the list of the least wanted and least favored of the plots for the Alliance, both of these two plots. After the main one in the cul-de-sac right here, you have these two, right? Quite close, honestly, to these houses. However, we're not leaving. We are not leaving because we're back here. We are back to Sleepy Sand Outpost, owned by that, and this is here. So this one is, you know, still somewhat in the same things we mentioned, not being liked, close to the main road, close to a bunch of other things. This is more RP, this is the farm kind of zone. So maybe that's why it is not that close to the other houses in terms of proximity, although you still see them. You're still reminded of other humans around you. That's perhaps what players don't like with this house. It's just too close to two other houses, too close to the main road, and too close to this old vineyard farmland close to it. So it makes it into the bottom 7 of least liked plots for the Alliance. Now, are we finally moving away from this entire clump? We are. We are, but not by a huge amount, because we are going to Sleepy Sound Outpost owned by Amadrood over here. You can already tell from the placement what the problem could be from being here, right? This problem, right? And this problem. You even have the detachment from the main road, which splits into your house, their house, their house, right? It's a bit too close. Also, the pesky main road is here again to pester you with peasants passing by. You don't even have a fence here to stop the criminals to coming in and stealing into your house. So this is another one of the same logic. And these two are not, though, in the bottom. These two are not chosen as the bottom ones. Only this one, further proving the fact that the main road is the problem. This one is fine, you know, nice backyard, nice waterfall next to it is pretty cool. Honestly, this one too, being close to each other didn't seem to be a problem for these guys when players chose these houses, house number 46 and house number 54. These two, by the way, are actually in the middle of the pack of choices compared to this one, chosen more than twice as much than these. This was our third place of least wanted plots for the Alliance. Moving into top 2, this time is where we actually have to leave to be a little bit further away, because we are going in this trio. We are going in plot number 26, which is right here. In fact, it is so not wanted, nobody wants it. It's right over here. So this one perhaps might not even be the main road, even though it is. You know, these places, by the way, will host some RP events. There will be some things in here, which means you are gonna be very close to it. Plus, it's completely deserted. There's like nothing of note in this plot. There's nothing, zero. And even when there is nothing, at the very least, it could have been isolated. Maybe it could have been elevated high up in some hills. No, it's on the ground. It's next to the main road. It's next to an RP spot where you're gonna have to do your dailies or weeklies. And then there's a plot here, and there's a plot here. But this is it's a well worth second place in terms of worst picked plots for the Alliance neighborhood. However, we are moving away to get to our number 1. Our number 1 is gonna be plot number 52. It's in more of these enclaved neighborhoods, being right here. As we pass by, no, these two are fine. Even if they're next to each other, nobody seemed to have problems with those two, and a few other ones that might seem close to each other. For example, all of these. Nobody had anything to say bad about all of these. However, they had something bad to say about this one, which was chosen as the worst one. Now, I can kind of see the problem with this house. So it's behind an elevated structure, which is not a big cliff or anything. It's a farmyard. It's farmland, and you're below it, which already feels bad. Then you have main road. Not just main road, but a connection of multiple roads into a roundabout. And right across you, of course, as usual, there is another house. Now, the backdrop isn't terrible. The panoramic view is not awful. I guess cows are not that good to look at, but it is mostly about all of these things combined. This plus this plus this badness is what is making this plot right here the least liked plot in the Alliance neighborhoods. As mentioned, there are a few others that got by scot-free, even according to our own logic, like these two being next to each other. People didn't seem to have that many issues. These two being next to each other, same, players were fine. One of the major problems, again, seemed to be the main roads, the connection to these main roads and being close to other neighborhoods at the same time. Now, as for our top though, our most wanted and most favorite house plots, we are starting with a familiar view, because this is the same view of the sandy, beachy backdrop of the sea in the Horde. Same thing here. because you have the Sleepy Sand Outpost, which is the number 10 in our top 10 of most wanted of the neighborhood plots. Yes, there is a road, but it's not one of the main roads, and more importantly, the feeling, the atmosphere, the sort of, you know, the sort of Drastvar, spooky witches in the trees kind of atmosphere, plus you don't have neighbors close to you. This is isolated, and the backdrop. So that's the number 10 for the Alliance in terms of choices of plots. Now, number 9, unsurprisingly, we keep going down the coastline, because number 9 is going to be plot 35, which is the Sleepy Sand Outpost over here. Now, this one does have, interestingly, the flight path, plus also the roundabout. It's pretty across, one of the ones we mentioned being the worst. You do have it, though, right over here. So the logic here, what could it be? It does have a better backdrop and it is more isolated. It is still interesting though. It's right behind a flight path. I wouldn't expect this one to be that liked, to be fair, but it is. Number 9 on the most liked of the plots. And you still continue, by the way, down the coastline for number 8, because the other one in the Sleepy Sand Outpost, this one is for more of the same reason of the backdrop and being isolated in essentially this cul-de-sac by yourself. Same thing we mentioned in this cul-de-sac, where they were divided at the very least by something to make it seem like they are not as close. Same here, right? This looks kind of okay. There is some natural barrier between the two houses, rather than being way closer to each other, like in the Horde version, where there was nothing between the houses. So this one is better in that regard. As we finish our list down this coastline for number 7, it's plot 48. I guess it will be more of the same. You have more of this double attachment of houses. This one is again with a pretty cool backdrop. It's again in a cul-de-sac, and where it's just your house. It is closer, and there is less of a natural barrier between the two. That is what is surprising for this house to make it in 7th place. The fact that, honestly, if you are here, you disengage and you enter this house. You know, it's pretty close. All things considered, they are pretty close to each other. So it's surprising for this one to make it in number 7. We finally move from the coastline. We're not gonna be here until a while. We have to leave now and go to a different kind of coastline, because we have to go to our number 6 at the edge of our top 5, and this is plot 28. Now, plot 28, surprisingly, or not, is over here. So you have the, I guess, atmospheric passage through this bridge, which is quite nice before entering your plot. And your plot is isolated. There is nobody else. You even have some cool extras like stairs down for the beach, just for you, nobody else, and this is the house. Yes, much like we mentioned for Horde plots, close to each other here, but it's elevated, so you barely even see it, right? It's not really your concern, your eye up. You are the king, they are the peasants, the plebs, living right next to the sea. You're not. That is what makes it a better plot than the ones down the shore, which is also why perhaps these have not been chosen as part of the top most liked, most wanted plots, but this one is. Now, I said we were done for this coastline for a while, except until now, because we're back down this coastline for the number 5. The 5th most wanted plot is right this one. So understandably, for a plot to be put here, it's more of the same. The spooky atmosphere of the Witches of the Forest, and you are isolated. You have the backdrop of a large cliff with nobody to bother you. There are no visible plots nearby besides this one, quite far away. There is a road right in front of you, right, but it leads to nowhere, so that doesn't really feel that bad. So this one actually makes it in the top 5. Decent enough, I mean, pretty empty backdrop, not annoying you with a bunch of other houses in the spooky part of the neighborhood and pretty isolated from the rest of the plots. Now for number 4, we are changing coastline, but we are still in the coastline. We moved away from here to go all the way back to where we were here before. We said this one made it into the top 10 and these were ignored, too close to the shoreline, pretty much of a peasant position right in here, but this one does make it, number 12. Number 12 is the 4th most wanted plot in the Alliance. Now, you can see already the better position of this one. Natural barrier making you help forget the fact that there are other houses in here, right? You stay here, let's pretend they don't exist. And the backdrop is just water. Apparently players just enjoy having a backdrop of nothing, just nothing. That's enjoyed. That is the 4th most wanted one. Honestly, I think it's pretty bad. You have a roundabout right in front of you. There is some swampy backwater kind of river just crawling next to you. The backdrop, there is nothing, and this is not a particularly good natural barrier. It doesn't really look that nice, but hey, it's Alliance players we are talking about. So this is the number 4 in the Alliance neighborhood. For number 3, finally, we are leaving the coast. But also we are not staying in the normal forest or in the spooky forest either. We are staying in the only other part of your neighborhood. Now, while at first glance these might seem too close to each other, just like we saw, for example, here, it wins out though, because number 31 is the 3rd most liked of the neighborhood plots for the Alliance. And honestly, this is just about as good you can have a neighborhood while looking like a neighborhood, while still not feeling too suffocating and too close to others. You have a nice natural backdrop sloping down with a bunch of grazing animals down here. It looks very pretty, looks very nice. And then you have the forest down the line, you have the cliffs with the waterfalls, you have the bridge down the river with an even bigger waterfall, and then the houses here are nicely spread further from you that it makes it look like you are, you know, in a neighborhood but still far away enough for this to be nice. This one is arguably, I would say, the one with the best view overall, pretty much 360 degrees. That has the best view out of all of the plots. And it does kind of perhaps make sense while this one would be in the top 10, in fact 3rd, while these ones don't even make top 20. You know, because the further you go away from this spot, you lose all of the waterfalls, you lose this flowery, slopey hill and these trees, and instead you get more nothing in here, right? So it kind of makes sense perhaps, while only this one would win out compared to these other houses. There is one though that beats this one, number 0, which is very close. However, the atmosphere is quite different, because this one right here is the 2nd most liked of the houses. Now, it's more of what we just said. It's another one of these neighborhoods, while not necessarily feeling like you are strangled by others. All of this is natural. This is not part of your like housing decor. It's just here by itself, right? Same goes for all of this, by the way. The only other house here is this one. It's this one right here. This is natural. It's here by itself. So is this tree and this one and this one and this lake with this nice sloping river. This is all natural. That leads to this house. So it's perhaps the better one of the almost spooky category of houses, while still having some nice natural decor. The backdrop is also nice. The aesthetics around the house are still pretty nice, while still not being too isolated. It's not one of the classic ones on the cliffs, on the edge of the zone. It's pretty much into it, but not as crowded as others. And this is a nice natural decor. This little river with the thing in the middle is nice, and it makes it into number 2. However, for what seemed like a couple of plots which went away from what we saw as the stereotype from the Horde versions, so the very isolated ones away from the rest, right? We have to go back there because the most wanted of the plots for the Alliance is this one. Well, speaks by itself. There's nothing. There's no sign of human life, or any kind of life really, around here. It's just you. It is one of the more, you could say, one of the more isolated out of all of the houses. In fact, I believe it is the most isolated out of all of the houses. And it's in the edgy, spooky part of the neighborhood. So it does also have a pretty nice backdrop over here to look at from your house. Even here you got some free waterfalls around your house, so it is unsurprisingly, I guess, the most liked of the neighborhood plots when it comes to the Alliance. Worth pointing out also, it is the most liked by a pretty significant margin. To be fair, all the ones we just saw in the top 5 were ahead of the competition by quite a bit. So in short, this is what we have for the Alliance. These are the top results for the Alliance choices in the neighborhoods, with, as mentioned, the last few we have seen being quite high up in the preferences of players. Now, with this being said and done with, we also have the look of the most liked, most wanted choices of Alliance players, or even just players with an Alliance themed neighborhood for our player housing. So for today, this was the review on the choices of players for this new system introduced in 11.2.7. And with this overview out of the way, we can now leave each other. We're starting the goodbyes by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with, of course, everyone else who's been supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, yeah, I would also have preferred an Alliance neighborhood, but our players are all Horde boomers who just want to sit around rock, dust and dirt.